Hello, my name is Mark Richard. I work for Oxford University Press and I train English teachers. So if you're watching this video, I am assuming you have some experience of using graded readers in your English classrooms. However, for many of us, along with our students, we are not in our classrooms right now. So I'd like to share with you how we can use stories from graded readers to teach online classes to students who are locked up, or rather locked down, in their homes. So how will you use your graded readers? Now, generally, whether online or offline, there are two approaches to using them. Individual use, usually a library system where students choose whatever book they want to. So all students are reading different books and they can choose a book at their level of English. But in this video, I want to focus on whole class use because that's what a lot of schools need to find a way of doing online. So whole class use, usually in the classroom, it means students come together, they all have the same book, the same story, and the teacher reads it to them or they go through the story together in class. How do we do that online? So that's my focus. However, I will suggest that we can blend these approaches or at least combine them a little bit in some way. And here's what I mean by that. So before you start a new book, you can get together online and do some pre-reading activities together, right? And then you can do pre-reading for chapter 1 activities. And then your students go offline and read chapter 1 independently, right, by themselves. So I don't know your situation, whether students have the printed book, okay, and there's all sorts of readers. This is a kind of cartoon style, but there are others. This is Dominoes. This is classic tales, more fairy tale style. I don't know if your students will have the printed book at home or maybe an e-book, but at least try to get the e-book for yourself on the Oxford Learners bookshelf because that's really strong visually to display and it's easier to use than, for example, holding a book up to your video screen to share. Okay, so ask your Oxford University Press ELT consultant to help you with that if you're not sure how to get the ebooks. Okay, so you do the kind of pre-reading together. And then students go off and read chapter 1. When they've done that, they come back. So you all come back together and online you meet and you do some post-reading activities for chapter 1 and pre-reading for chapter 2. Okay, so pre-reading is usually predicting what will happen next. Post-reading is some way of recapping, reviewing storyline elements or something to do with the characters or maybe language in a chapter you've just read. Okay, and this approach continues through the chapters until you reach the end of the story. And then when you finish the book, you can do some online together activities. All right, to kind of summarize the whole book. So for me, this mixed or combined approach has the benefits of moving the whole class together through the story as a reading community, while at the same time letting students at home read at their own pace, which they can feel comfortable, they can digest the story better. Now, for very young low or low-level students, you'll probably need to read the story aloud to them online, and there'll be less of the independent reading. Okay, so you have a new story. What's the first thing to do? So you're online together. Do not start by opening to page 1 and asking someone to read aloud. Get your students curious first. Use the front cover. So you can do this over a webcam, or you can do it with graphics, especially if you have an ebook. All right, use the picture on the front cover. Ask questions, tease your students. Who's that man in the gray hat with the gray beard and the gray suit? And how does he look? Happy, sad, surprised, horrified? What's happening? What's he looking at? When is this story set? What time is this? What place is it? What's that? Get your students curious. What's the title, do you think? What will happen in this story? Okay, so make use of the front cover. Your students will make predictions. When they guess what will happen, they'll want to know what will happen. How do they do that? By reading. You can also use the blurb on the back cover, which gives a kind of teasing description to get your students to want to read the story. Okay, so this is, by the way, from Oxford University Press Domino's Graded Reader Series, Level 1, Sherlock Holmes, The Emerald Crown. Okay, but this applies for most graded readers' stories that you can teach. Okay, now, by the way, as I move this hand out of the way, remember the graded readers will have suggestions for pre- and post-reading activities in them, so you can follow those too. Now, while you are reading the story, and by the way, even if you want your students to read the chapter by themselves offline, it might still be useful first to give an example of fluent reading by reading the story aloud to them or playing the narrated audio track from an audio CD or from the ebook, right? Just click the play button and they can listen and follow along with the text. Okay, that way, when you ask them to read it again by themselves, they've had an example of the pace and intonation of fluent reading, and they can try and copy that to some extent. Okay, so when you read aloud to your students or play the audio track, please don't stop every second and ask them about grammar. Okay, that will just get in the way of enjoying the story. But you can pause sometimes just to develop some good reading skills and habits. What are some good reading habits? Well, good readers tend to do things like make predictions about what will happen next, think about characters and their relationships with each other, ask questions, form opinions, all right? So you can model that. One way to do that is ask questions yourselves. What do you think will happen next? And even if students don't answer, the trick is to get them thinking like a good reader. The other easier way of doing this is to think out loud. So you show what a good reader's thought process is. I wonder why Sherlock Holmes is dressed like a fisherman or something like that. Oh, I think he feels sad because, and so on. Okay, and what you'll find is your students will start thinking just like you. You're developing good reading habits. So as a recap, this is how I suggest many teachers could structure their use of stories online. Now, at each stage for pre-reading, while reading, post-reading, there are so many fun activities to do. But what I want to do today is just get the right model in place for using a reader online. If you could do that, you're off to a strong start and you can develop from there. Okay, everyone. One last idea. After I finish the whole book, a little extra gift for you. Venn diagrams. So I like to get my students to compare themselves with a character in the story. So here I've compared myself with Sherlock Holmes, and I have to think quite deeply about Sherlock Holmes, his personality, what he likes to do, and I'm really making a connection with the character in the story. All right, so there are no wrong answers. I'm not afraid of getting it wrong. I had a student compare herself with Mulan. She said, "Oh, Mulan is very brave, but I'm not." And that was interesting. It's very reflective. I learned about that student's personality. So I can imagine that online your students would make a digital version of this or just take a picture of a Venn diagram they've made. You can share it with their classmates and they'll have a lot of fun talking with each other and explaining what they've written, something to talk about. Okay, let us know if this video helped you. And please go to the OUP Learn at Home website for lots of ideas and support, all sorts of resources to help you through this very odd time of teaching our students, but remotely online. What an odd time in our careers and our lives, but maybe one day it'll make a great story, huh? Everyone, thank you and take care.